Session hijacking. In this lesson, we are going to talk all about session hijacking. But before we do, we need to talk about session management because session management is a fundamental security component in our web applications these days. When we talk about session management, this enables web applications to uniquely identify a user across a number of different actions and requests while keeping the state of the data generated by that user and ensuring it's assigned to that user. Now, when we do session management, for instance, you log into my website, and there's a lot of other students who are logged into my website right now. When you're logged in, I need to know what lesson you're watching. I need to know what quiz you've passed. And all of that is session information while you're connected to me. And then when you're done with that session, I need to save that in my database so that way when you log in next time, we didn't lose your results. Now, a lot of the way that people do this, though, is not just in the database, but they also use cookies. We're talking about cookies in the cyber sense. And the reason we have to use cookies is because web, or HTTP, is a stateless protocol. This means that the server doesn't preserve any information about the client by default. So if you want to store that information, you have to either store it in a cookie or in your database. Now, cookies allow web applications to retain this information about the users of the website, and normally these cookies are going to be stored on your client. Now, a cookie is essentially just a text file. It's a text file that's used to store information about a user when they visit the website. Now, that cookie is created when the server first sends the HTTP response header with that cookie. Then any subsequent request headers that are sent by the client will also include the cookie so we can send that information back and forth. Because of that, we want to make sure that that cookie is protected because it is being transmitted across the internet. Now, when we talk about session cookies like these are going to be non-persistent. They reside in memory. And when you're done and you close out that browser instance, guess what? That cookie would be deleted as well. But not all cookies are just session cookies. Some cookies are going to be more persistent, and these are known as persistent cookies because they stay around for a while. These cookies are stored in the browser cache until they're deleted by the user when you do the clearing your cookies, or when they pass a defined expiration date. For instance, you might connect to my website, and my cookie might say, this cookie is good for 7 days. And so if you came back in 8 days, that cookie would be gone and you'd be like a new user to us. If we were configured that way, that's the way cookies work. Now, when we talk about cookies, again, they have to be protected. And so when you're sending these cookies or you're storing any kind of confidential information in them, you should make sure they are encrypted. By encrypting those cookies, you can keep that information confidential because remember, confidentiality and encryption go hand in hand. Now, the next thing we need to talk about is session hijacking. As I said, a lot of these cookies are session cookies. And so session hijacking relates to this really well. When we talk about session hijacking, it's a type of spoofing attack where the attacker disconnects a host and then replaces it with his or her own machine, spoofing the original host IP address or using some other mechanism. For instance, a lot of session hijacking attacks occur through the theft or the modification of cookies. So if I can steal your cookie, I can take over your session and pretend I'm you. Now, another way that this can be done is by doing session prediction. Session prediction attacks are simply a type of spoofing attack where the attacker attempts to predict the session token to hijack that session. Now, this session token has to be generated using a non-predictable algorithm, and it must not reveal any information about the session client. Essentially, it's a one-time use ticket for the duration of that session, and so it might be some long random number, but how it's generated has to be non-predictable. If it is predictable, somebody can guess it and they can take over your session. So the last thing I want to talk about here is cookie poisoning. I know we've talked a lot about cookies and it's making me hungry, but let's talk about cookie poisoning and then we'll finish up this lesson. When we talk about cookie poisoning, this modifies the contents of a cookie after it's been generated and sent by the web service to the client's browser, so that that newly modified cookie can then be used to exploit vulnerabilities in a web application. If you want to be able to counter cookie poisoning on your systems, you want to make sure you validate the input of your web app to account for any tampered with cookies. By doing encryption of your cookies during transmission and storage, you can help prevent this, and if you delete cookies from the browser cache when the client terminates their session, it doesn't leave those cookies sitting there being able to be poisoned by somebody else. So this is all about good cookie management. Now, I know a lot of people are against cookies in websites, and a lot of people turn off cookies, but a lot of sites need these cookies to operate. And so you have to be able to think about this if you're the guy or gal who's programming these websites. Do you have to use cookies to do this? Can you do this as saving things in your own database? Can you do this another way? And if you can't and you have to use cookies, make sure you're doing it securely by making sure they're very time limited, they're deleted when you're done, and they're encrypted anytime you're storing data in them.